Not only was that a fucking telemarketer, but it was the same friggin' one that interrupted my last video. It's a stupid electric company, one of those automated messages. That's why my phone's off. I shut my phone off all the time. I don't want to be bothered. Same stupid automated message. It was the same identical one that just called, trying to get you to change your electric. You know, so annoying. Same freaking one just called my mom just a half hour ago or something. Ugh. I hate those too. Alright, so let's start again with the GMOs, what I learned here. Fascinating shit, let me tell you. Okay. Again, I watched this documentary called Bot. But I didn't just watch it, I took notes. Just as if I were in school. Took notes. Can't find my notes now. See what happens. This is fascinating shit. Again, I knew about GMOs and whatnot, and theoretically, like, why they're not good and why people say they're not good and whatnot. But anyway, so there are 3 kinds of GMOs. There's Bt toxin found in corn, soy, and cottonseed. The plant is genetically engineered to constantly reproduce the Bt toxin. Okay. So, like, say when the bug eats the corn, its stomach explodes from the constantly reproducing Bt toxin. So Bt toxin is a registered pesticide with the EPA, and then we eat this corn. And it's genetically engineered to constantly reproduce that Bt toxin. Okay. The second is Roundup Ready. The plant has been genetically engineered to withstand Roundup, okay? As I said in the other video, you could spray 100, theoretically, you could spray 100 billion zillion pounds of Roundup on this plant, and the plant's not going to die, okay? But the plant doesn't die, but everything around it dies. The bugs die, the worms in the soil die, the weeds die, the good bacteria in the soil die, okay? The Roundup soaks into the plant and it doesn't wash off. And the plant doesn't die. It's genetically engineered to not die, having these obscene amounts of pesticide in it, okay? And the problem with that is there is a chemical in Roundup called glyphosate. And glyphosate, unfortunately, destroys our gut bacteria, okay? And 70% of our immune system is in the gut. So without that gut bacteria, we can't produce tryptophan, okay? Without tryptophan, our body doesn't produce serotonin. Without serotonin, we can't regulate blood sugar, okay? And diabetes is now hugely on the rise. And that costs our federal government $279 billion a year. This is what they brought up in this documentary, the woman who was talking about this stuff. It costs our federal government $279 billion per year because diabetes is so obscenely on the rise, okay? And if you want to put that in perspective, the $279 billion, $514 billion is what is spent on all of our health issues combined, including cancer. That's what the government, allows, allots. $514 billion is what's spent on the whole spectrum of health issues combined, including cancer. And the projection is that in 13 years, we will not have money for any other health concern at all except for any other health care at all except for diabetes. So we won't have a health care system, okay? See, this is called critical thinking. People want to sweep this under the rug, and well, there's no proof, blah, 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 whatever, and they even admit this in the documentary, like, there's no proof of the long-term effects, but you have to see the correlation between things, okay? Roundup undeniably contains glyphosate, and glyphosate interferes, you know what I mean? And glyphosate destroys our gut bacteria, okay? They've proven this. 70% of our immune system is in the gut, and without that gut bacteria, we can't produce tryptophan. Without tryptophan, our bodies don't produce serotonin, and serotonin is what regulates. See, this is called, you think. It's called rational, like, critical thinking, and then without serotonin, we can't regulate blood sugar, and it's undeniable that diabetes is hugely on the rise. And not that long ago, I've seen this, they're showing stuff like this even on mainstream television, and like on a 2020 thing or something like that, and they usually don't want to touch anything that has to do with going against GMOs or vaccines or whatnot, but they were talking about diabetes in children, and you never even saw whatever type of diabetes in children until nowadays. There's got to be some reason, people. You see, that's critical thinking. There's got to be some reason that we are getting sick and sicker as a nation, okay? And that children are having all these chronic diseases that they were virtually unheard of in children, even when I was growing up, okay? All right, so we won't have a healthcare system. It's all going to be spent on diabetes. Diabetes is just going through the roof here. Okay. The third type of GMO, it doesn't have pesticides involved at all, okay? It doesn't have pesticides injected into it. It's a desired trait, where you modify a plant so it has a desired trait, like a lettuce is more green, tomatoes more red. And the problem with that is that it's genetically modified it promotes the desired trait, it wakes up genes, okay, in the plant. And the concern is that it has promates it's called promates. They're designed to wake up the genes in the plant. And the concern is that these promates could be waking up genes in our bodies, okay? And the woman's talking about we all have latent cancer genes, and maybe even, latent for rare diseases or whatnot. And what latent means is it may never wake up. I told you I was found to have a latent thing. It's for TB, but it never developed into TB, and I can't give anybody TB, but it is in me, and it could at any moment, if it, it could theoretically, it could wake up. And I found that when I was going through the system in California, and you have to get a TB test, and then if it swells at the site or whatnot, then you get an x-ray that shows you don't have TB, but the fact that it swells there, they say is proof that you have the TB inside of you, and apparently you can go through 6 months of just horrible, like, this, that, or whatnot, and I'd rather just take my chances, okay? I eat really healthy, and I would rather just take my chances than go through that bullshit. But latent, that's what latent means, and I have that. I found out a lot of people do. I have the TB thing, but I cannot give. It's not active. It's latent. It's not active. It sits inside of me, but that's why it swelled up at that site where I got the TB test in California. And then when I was in the shelters here in Massachusetts, once it swells up like that, once it's determined that you have that, it will always swell up, so you never have to do that again. You just have to, if you go into shelters and whatnot, you just have to get the chest x-ray to show that you don't actually have TB, okay? So that you can actually stay in the shelter. And the latent genes may never wake up, but what they're concerned about, people who are, have these concerns about GMOs, because again, we don't know the long-term effects of GMO. They're so new, you know what I mean? that Leighton may never wake up, but with these promates, they waking up genes, who knows what's happened? There's been no testing on them. So there's been no testing on it, and then she was saying, like, why all of a sudden is cancer the #1 killer of our children, okay? And they was talking about how this is an attack on children. And then she said, you know, if 50% of our male adults were getting injured by something, it would be war. The FDA has let us down. They failed us. They're supposed to ensure that our food supply is safe, and they haven't even taken the first basic step. They've never required independent long-term safety tests on genetically engineered food. They're basically relying on tests done by the very industry that stands to profit from the genetically modified food. Again, this is called critical thinking, okay? You can't deny it. It's true. I mean, you know, again, they cannot sit there and say for 100%. That's why they say in this documentary, you know, it's the unknown. It hasn't been significantly tested, and we don't know what's going to be the long-term effects of all this genetically modified food and whatnot. So, but again, fascinating shit, and I did not know this. Of course, I didn't know anything about the tryptophan, the glyphosate, and whatnot. You know, so we don't know the long-term effects. So, you know, the feelings on GMOs are it's the unknown. We don't know what the long-term effects are on the human and the environment. And 90% of processed foods are GMOs. And what we do know, though, is that other countries have actually banned GMOs. And over 50 countries require at least the labeling of them. Even China and Russia, that we think of being as, you know, they require labeling of GMOs, and the United States does not. Why is that? You know what I mean? Why are other countries so concerned? Even Russia and China, that we think of as being so, like, you know, just not having our type of freedoms and whatnot. Even those countries are required to label GMOs, and the United States is not. And there has to be some reason that a lot of countries have banned GMOs completely. But as I found out, of course, we're not going to ever ban GMOs. We're the ones that came up with them in the first place, the United States. And it's undeniably a multi-billion dollar industry. Undeniable, too. We as a nation are getting sicker and sicker. Our children are getting sicker and sicker, you know? And then, of course, the pharmaceutical industry is right there when we get sick, you know, to offer us all the drugs and all the whatever. And meanwhile, people put down, or they poo-poo, or they whatever natural remedies, or eating nice, whole, natural foods, and, you know, it's a really, really sick thing that's going on. And then they talk about we have the cheapest food apparently in the world, but, you know, people are paying for it. You know, it's like, people think, oh, our food shouldn't cost that much. We don't want to pay for food, but we can pay for, you know, TVs and cars and entertainment and stuff, whatever, you know, but you can pay for your food now, you know, by buying organic, non-genetically modified food, or you can pay for it later in doctor's bills. And that came to light even in regards to our pets. John Barron sent us out, who subscribed to him, an article revolving around our pets. Apparently, because people are poor nowadays and whatnot, and money's tight, they're not taking their pets into like the wellness checks or whatnot as often as they used to. But so that's gone way down, but the cost of vet is actually skyrocketed because more pets have to go for emergencies. You know what I mean? That's an interesting thing, huh? People don't take their pets to the vets as often or whatnot, but then because of the money thing, but then more pets have to go in for emergencies, and you wind up paying that way anyway instead of just doing regular, maintenance or regular whatever. And it's the same thing, with the, you don't want to pay for food, you want to just buy cheap food where you're going to pay later in your doctor's bills and with your health. And without your health, it really doesn't matter. All the riches in the world, all the whatever, if people don't have their health, they have nothing, Glad I stayed up and watched it. I really am. I asked Joe if he was going to watch it. He's like, no, I already know all of it. There's nothing I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure that's true, Joe. It was stuff that I didn't know. I'm glad I watched it. And I could understand it. That's what I loved, too. I understood every word of it. There's nothing that I didn't understand. There's nothing I couldn't process in my brain and understand, And that's not always the case. There are things in my life or books I've tried to read or whatnot that I had a difficulty understanding. I forced myself to try to understand what I was reading. I had no trouble processing the chain of events, the causality, how they're saying that even stuff that can't be proven, there's still correlation. You got to look into it more because A and B, it's all, and I believe it because I see just how everyone just worships the dollar, and of course these major companies, And there are people who have severe adverse reactions to vaccines. And there are vaccines promoted that aren't even like Gardasil or something crap like that. They said there was, and these pharmaceutical companies have sometimes paid out huge money in lawsuits. But like they said, so they'll pay out $3 billion in lawsuits, but on this drug that should have never been approved by the FDA in the first place, they made